Welcome back, Hang Squad. It's Sharon and Lauren here. How's my friend Lauren today?
I am great, Sharon, despite the rainy weather and
I know.
the gloom and doom outside. I'm in Florida.
We're lucky. We were just saying we're lucky to be alive, right?
Right?
Each day you're above ground.
Yeah, and we're
it's
not
a good day.
I'm not shoveling snow or worried about a hurricane. What's a little rain and gray and
In March, right?
Yeah,
That's
in
not,
March.
not such a bad thing. Well, we also want to welcome our guest today, Melissa Fino. Welcome, Melissa.
Hello. Thank you for having me today. I'm excited to have this conversation.
Yeah, we are too. Thank you for being here. So, a little bit about Melissa. Melissa Fino is a high school dropout, an attempted murder survivor, domestic violence survivor, and suicide survivor, turned best-selling author of Little Miss Perfect, an award-winning business coach, and a sought-after visibility strategist. With a master's from USC and over a decade of experience, she is known for her bold, no bullshit approach to business growth, helping entrepreneurs command authority, amplify their visibility, and get paid for the value they bring. You can connect with Melissa on her Instagram at I am Melissa Fino, and that's spelled MELISSAFINO, or visit her website at melissafino.com. DM her the word perfect, PERFECT, on Instagram, and she'll send you the first chapter of her book for free so you can get started immediately. And we'll share your links on our podcast.
Melissa, you have fabulous hair. Like if
No
you took
kidding, right?
me and Sharon and then added like 50 of our friends together, we'd all have your
We'd be
hair.
jealous. We're all jealous.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I finally learned how to style it for Florida humidity.
Oh, I know.
Oh, I'd take it in full-on humidity or...
So how long have you been in Florida?
In April, it'll be a year, I guess. It's hard to believe that it's been a year so far.
From California.
Yes, from San Diego.
From San Diego. So there was a lot there to unpack in your intro.
Mm-hmm.
So let's start with how you became a high school dropout and then ended up with a master's degree.
Yeah.
That's a big...
Yeah. So I dropped out of high school at the age of 16, and I was a very big troublemaker.
We don't know anything about that, do we, Laura?
And tell us a little nothing about that. But I'm always curious because
Yeah.
one person's definition of
of
troublemaker.
course,
So like,
definitely.
what were you doing?
So my parents had an arranged marriage, and I'm 100% Portuguese, and it's kind of like they both came here from Portugal together.
Obrigada.
Obrigada. Yeah, very good. And because they came here with their strong cultural traditions, I felt a lot of pressure to follow those kind of trends. And it's essentially, I was Little Miss Perfect. I thought I had to be perfect when I was younger, and this was my feeling of not really being good enough. So because of that, I acted out a lot. I didn't want to follow the same patterns that my parents had done, and acting out for me means during my junior year of high school, which was the year that I dropped out, I had missed 74 days of school, I think. It could possibly be 76.
Oh my God.
Yeah. What were you doing during the days that you were supposed to be at school?
I was being a bad girl. I was hanging out with my boyfriend. I was probably drinking a little bit. I was doing all of the things that you shouldn't be doing.
Are you an only child?
I'm the youngest child. There's a 9-year age difference between my brother and I.
Okay.
So I ended up dropping out, and then at the age of 17, I went to community college, dropped out of community college. At 18, I got a bunch of different jobs, got into the hospitality industry, ended up serving, ended up becoming a manager, ended up just staying in that career for over a decade. Mm-hmm. It was lovely, but it wasn't soul fulfilling for me. And I was just kind of comfort zone living.
Yeah.
And then, gosh, jolly. At the age of 34, my dad died. And that was what changed everything for me. I always say that my dad's last breath in life was my first breath in life, because he used to kind of put me on this shelf, this pedestal, and he had all this love for me, and I finally realized that I needed to put myself on the shelf, and I needed to, hold myself and do the things that I could finally accomplish. And so that was where I made this big change within myself. And I went to community college again and graduated, and then got into, got my bachelor's, graduated with honors, did all of that. But the years from 16 to 34 were still not feeling myself. We're still, just struggling.
That's a pretty potent point you just made, and I know we're going to talk about it further with the fact that you had all of this love from your father, but without having love for yourself, obviously there was an issue.
Mm-hmm.
That feeling of still not being enough and not being seen, right?
Yeah.
All of that.
Yeah. And when you feel that way, all you are is a mirror for people who feel that way about themselves too.
Yeah.
And that's
where do you think that came from?
Because I thought I had to hold myself up to the same specific standards that my parents had when they came here. And the Portuguese tradition is very much, you have to put on this display of perfection. And women always take care of men, and women are always doing all the things, and their emotions and feelings, it's not that they're not important, they're just never really brought to the forefront. It's something that's kind of like, not suffocated, but kept inside.
Kept inside.
Yeah. And so I developed this persona, an idea that I had to be someone different. So I ended up really swallowing a lot of the feelings that I had personally. And it wasn't my parents' fault. I always say, like, they came with their own, their own problems that they had to break free from. But at the age of 15, I think, it could have been 14 was the first time there was 2 multiple suicide attempts that I had when I was younger, and they were when I was in high school. And they were both overdosed situations. And the second one, my mom found me stark naked in my bedroom after I had drank alcohol and taken a bottle of her pills. I don't remember if they were anxiety pills or what they were.
So you were battling depression.
Yeah.
And tried to commit suicide.
Yeah, and then she had to call the ambulance, and I was taken to the hospital at this point in time, and then I was put on hold for 24 hours. I was under the age of 18. But those were the feelings that I had when I was younger. And it's easy to see now how I was feeling then, but you don't see it in the moment, right? Yeah.
That's why they say hindsight's 2020. Mm-hmm. And I always reflect on that when talking to you about having attempted suicide, or when you read about it in the media. And we've all lost family members, and when you think of people who are sick with a terminal illness or cancer, and they fight so hard to survive, like my mom did, and I'm, had early cancer, and I'm so paranoid about it coming back and I'm going to die. And then I think to myself, the pain and struggle someone must have to think that
to take their own life.
Taking their own life, no longer living, being dead is better than being alive is hard for me to understand.
Do you think a lot of people that are trying to commit suicide, it's more of a cry for help because they just want that pain to go away? Or like what, I mean, obviously it's a complex subject and issue, and every situation's different. But in your experience, do you feel like you were just crying out for help, or you were just in so much pain?
I think I was a young adolescent who was misunderstood and didn't really, I had all of these different feelings, and I truly didn't understand them. Yeah. And when I look back at it now, I can see that I wasn't fitting in, even though I really wanted to fit in. And now I look at it and I see, like, I wasn't fitting in because I wasn't meant to fit in. I was meant to lead. I was meant to.
You were meant to stand out.
Yeah, I was meant to do something completely different.
Yeah, and that's something we say a lot on this podcast, because your story certainly resonates with a lot of people, and I think a lot of, especially young people in that age bracket, really struggle with, do I fit in? And I'm not. a cheerleader, right? Or I'm not in with this crowd. And, I think our crowds in high school were the burnouts, the nerds, and I can't remember the three, the athletes, right? So there were all these different groups, and you're like, okay, well, I don't fit into any of those pre-described groups.
Yeah.
So now what do I do? And you're right, not until you get a little bit older do you realize you're not meant to fit in. You're meant to stand out. You're meant to lead. You're meant to do something special.
Yeah.
Not just be part of the group, but to actually change the world in some of the ways that you've done. So, so that's, So you got through that, and is that past you, do you think?
Oh, completely. Yeah. This isn't something that...
So that was just
that was just when I was younger, I had those feelings, and I haven't felt that way since,
So did you go to therapy to talk about
them? I had to go to a whole different kinds of therapy,
And did you find someone that really helped you?
No,
or,
not at that point.
Because everyone, we had a conversation with a wonderful guy named Dave who dealt with addiction, and he had a different method of, healing than maybe someone else did. So I think there's certainly no one size fits all.
Oh, heck no. I don't believe there is either. I think that I wasn't at that point in time ready for therapy or any of the mindset techniques or tools or anything that either one of us would use today.
Yeah.
I just wasn't ready at that point in time. Now I've developed so much more and grown so much more over the past decade that it's completely different. So I think I've healed everything that I've been through. And honestly, I didn't, we're going to talk about so much more, but I suppressed a lot of things that I had gone through in my 20s and didn't talk about them with anyone, actually. I actually wrote them in my book and then got it published and then handed it to my mother and my godmother and my aunts and said, read this and call me when you're done.
Yeah.
And that's the communication that I had from everything that I've been through.
Yeah. It's hard. You do feel so alone and ashamed and everything else, right? So tell me about, it says here, attempted murder survivor.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah. So I attracted the mirror for what I was feeling, which was a gentleman who I'd actually gone to high school with, who I wasn't in a relationship with when I was in high school, but it just kind of ended up being that way. And it was just a narcissistic relationship, and he didn't love himself, so he obviously was very negative towards me, and he wanted to possess me, and there was a lot of abuse in the relationship. And the final ending of it was we were both out to dinner, and this was at a point I received a phone call, and it was a gentleman that I had worked with at a restaurant that I was working at, and he wanted to see if I could switch a shift with him. Yeah, if I could switch a shift with him. It was, his brother was actually in a wheelchair, and he needed to take his brother somewhere, so it was for something very meaningful. We were out to dinner. The gentleman who I was in a relationship with came back from the bathroom and heard me listening to a voicemail from a male, and automatically went to complete rage. Yeah. And I ran out of the restaurant. He chased me out of the restaurant, and he tried to run me over with his car in the parking lot. And there were lots of people there who were blocking the situation. And he ended up getting arrested, and there were restraining orders and multiple things that had happened. But that was the final straw for me to be able to remove myself from that relationship and to be able to kind of find my strength. And maybe that was a part of me beginning to peel off some of those layers, but that was personal, it was just, I kept that all to myself. Now, some of my friends and my family knew that their relationship wasn't perfect, and that
was it physical abuse, emotional abuse, both? All of it.
All of it.
So that was the relationship where the domestic violence occurred.
How long were you with him?
Years.
Wow.
Yeah.
You kept taking it
So
back.
not a year or 2 years.
Years, yeah. And so some of my friends and family knew that there was volatility and kind of violence in the relationship, at least verbally, but I never let them know what the extent of it was. But there were many times when, this was at the point in time when, remember payphones?
Oh, of course.
We do.
Yeah.
We're old enough to remember.
I was
And
working
rotary
at a
phones.
restaurant, and there were times when he would call from the payphone across the street, call the front desk to see if I was actually working. He would call to see if they would go get me, to see if I was actually working, because he didn't believe that I was actually working. And there were many times where I had bruises on my face that I would just call out of work because it had gotten very physical.
And why didn't you leave?
Because I didn't think that I was lovable in a way that I didn't think that I was strong enough. I didn't really know how. And if I'm being completely honest, there's both of my parents had a tumultuous relationship as well.
Yeah.
There was never physical violence, but there was definitely, that was how I was modeled love, because there was definitely a lot of arguments. Yeah.
Well, and also I just want to tell our listeners a little bit that there's a misconception that domestic violence and domestic abuse happens to a certain demographic, and mostly in the poor communities, and that is not the case. And if you were to be able to see Melissa, you would see she's a beautiful young woman, and I'm sure came from a good family in a good area of, was it California when this happened? Connecticut, okay, Connecticut. So, it doesn't just happen in poor neighborhoods. It's happening probably to somebody you know. So, yeah.
True story. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, I'm sorry that you had to go through that. I do have some statistics I want to read about domestic violence because I think this is a very important subject. And what I found was that 24 people are so men and women are victims of rape, physical violence, or stalking by an intimate partner every minute. This amounts to over 12 million people per year. It's staggering, really, when you think about it. Only 19% of women who experience partner abuse in the last 12 months reported it to the police. So that means 80% of women don't report it for the reasons you were just saying.
Yeah.
They don't feel lovable. They don't feel worthy. They feel like maybe they caused it. Maybe it was their fault. If they hadn't, he wouldn't have, right? That kind of thing. 1 in every 4 women and around 1 in 7 men report having experienced severe physical violence from an intimate partner in their lifetime. I mean, just staggering the amount of people that this happens to. So it's
staggering, and what's so upsetting is also just thinking of the women that don't leave for a multitude of reasons, and certainly up there is not feeling worthy or good enough. And it's why Sharon and I talk about it a lot on this podcast. And when we're not on the podcast, we talk about it a lot, how infuriating it is how women treat other women. Instead of using all of their effort and any platform they have to raise one another up. I mean, you just see it again and again on social media. You hear it when you're out having dinner, the women behind you talking about another woman. And, it's the little things we can do to help women feel better about themselves, be supportive. And I think if it is the little things that matter, that if women start stepping up and helping one another, it might help give all of these women that feel that they aren't worthy.
Well, but also in the case of domestic violence, it's difficult to share your story even with your closest friends because there's so much judgment around it, because they are looking at you like, what's wrong with you? Why can't just leave? Why, you don't deserve to be treated that way.
Yes, but I mean, if you're hearing every day positive thoughts about how great you are and how strong you are and wonderful from early on to later on in life, I think that could have an impact on you not feeling like you're a piece of shit.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see your response to this, Melissa. I think, though, that women become financially dependent oftentimes on their man. They have nowhere to go. If there's children involved in the relationship, that makes it even harder because now you're like, okay, I'm putting up with this because I've got kids to raise. There's so many
you don't
factors.
Want to go be homeless.
So you don't want to be homeless. There's so many reasons why women don't leave the relationship.
Yeah.
Do you want to add to that?
Well, there's so many things that are coming up for me with what both of you said.
Yeah.
And the first thing is that I actually think that I had a weird epiphany as both of you were talking. For me personally, and a memory is that for me, it wasn't financial. And ironically, I actually lived in my own apartment and he would come stay with me. He was living at his parents' house. I had all of the I had all of the assets. I was working. I had money. I had all of the capabilities and possibilities to leave. I had friendship. I had great friendships, but I wasn't being my most authentic self and honest. And I honestly think that for me, it was just that's what I really thought that relationships were supposed to be, and that.
Because that's what was modeled for you.
And for me,
yeah.
I wouldn't be able to have that healthy relationship where somebody could love me without having this, I don't know the right word to put around it right now, but without having this hostility or volatility kind of going inside the relationship.
Yeah. Interesting. So that felt normal to you.
It is crazy. And to say that, it kind of makes me want to take it a step further and say, if this right now in the statement you just made isn't a perfect reason to show people who are in a horrible, tumultuous relationship that staying together for the kids is not a good thing, it's toxic and what have you, maybe less people would quote unquote stay together for the kids when they're in a horrible relationship.
Yeah. And it's not even just, horrible relationship. It's not even just abuse and that, but I think there are many women who are in impoverished areas or who do have kids and who perhaps aren't working or they're stuck in this situation or they feel as if they're stuck because of monetarily. But I think I just had that awareness. And yeah, there's a lot to unpack there that just came out for me.
That's good. We like that.
A lot of us do want,
we like that.
Yeah.
we do strive to want the facts because I'll speak for myself. I do understand that, you have kids, you're not the money earner, you don't want to be on the street, maybe you don't have family you can move in with. Let's say you have no family, your husband makes all the money, you have kids. Certainly that scenario is easier to get your head around where I guess we want to put it in a little box to try and understand it, which isn't the right thing to do, but just being honest, because it's hard to think how someone could stay to what you just said when they have the means and sort of the power, if you will. It's very interesting.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah, but my guess is, and please tell me if I'm wrong, my guess is there was a lot of gaslighting going on. There was a lot of emotional abuse too, and probably a lot of this man making you feel like you're not going to get any better. You're getting the best you, right?
He told me everybody hated me every single day. And not every single day, every single hour. Every time we were out in public, everyone hated me. Everyone thought I was disgusting. Everybody thought it.
Right, that's the gaslighting.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, words hurt worse than the physical abuse because that shit stays with you. It stays with your head, it stays with your mind, and it sucks. So I totally get where you were at, and you're sitting there thinking, I'm a piece of shit. This guy that's supposed to love me keeps telling me that I'm a piece of shit.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to do any better. And then it gets to a breaking point where he's trying to run you over with his car. It was at the breaking point, I hope.
Oh my God. Oh my goodness.
And you didn't take him back.
And so he went to jail, and one of his friends was actually an attorney, very good attorney, and his attorney got him out that night. And that night he actually came over to my house.
Yeah.
And I didn't let him in, but he was banging down my door trying to get in, even though they told him you are not allowed to go. Yeah.
Do you call the police?
Of course.
Get him out. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Good.
And so, I have suppressed a lot of this in my head, but from the things that I can remember, He had a restraining order. I had a protective order against him for a year, and I had the possibility to go back and, renew it. But I refused to go back and renew it because in the state of Connecticut, when this was happening, in order for me to go back and renew it, I had to go to court and register where I was living at the time.
I thought that's what you were going to say.
Yeah, which
That's
I think is the
insane.
most asinine thing. I couldn't figure it out, so I never ended up going back because that means I'm going to be telling him exactly where I'm living.
Okay, I don't know if that's true in all states, but Connecticut, get your shit together. That is not okay.
Yeah. And I mean, this was in the early 2000s, but yeah.
Yeah. Horrible. Just horrible. But you have since turned your life around. You're in a
Completely.
much better place.
Yeah.
So we like to talk about silver linings.
Yeah,
here.
because
So
I know
let's move
that,
on to our silver lining.
we talked about the fact you dropped out of high school, then went to community college, dropped out, but I know that you have a master's from USC.
Yeah.
So,
Which is completely unheard of.
right?
So yay you, a little applause
Which is
for that.
completely
Yay you.
unheard of.
Yeah, how'd you get to California,
And I'm like-
University of Southern California?
Well, so I graduated with honors when I got my bachelor's at Central, and that was in my early 30s. And then I was told by my professors that I was a shoo-in to go to this one-year program at UConn. I wanted to go to UConn so bad because I had a crush on a guy who went to UConn, and that was his alma mater.
Damn men.
Yeah, I know, right? But they didn't accept me, which I was like, what the effing, you know what? So within a week of the deadline, I applied to the University of Southern California thinking it's not going to happen, and I actually got accepted to the University of Southern California, which was a top 10 school for my program, where UConn was like, I think, top 50, which is insane.
Yeah.
So within 3 weeks, I packed up my life from Connecticut and was like, thank God, and drove to California. And
New chapter.
yeah, so at this point in time, they had a virtual academic center in Rancho Bernardo, which is kind of like an hour away from San Diego. So I actually never lived in LA.
Okay.
Yeah, I just went to the pilot campus and did my field placement and all of that kind of fun stuff, and then walked at USC.
That's awesome.
That is awesome.
And what'd you get your master's in?
Social work.
Okay.
With a concentration of community organizing, policy, and administration. And that's how I got introduced to coaching during my last semester of coaching and consulting.
Okay, and now Melissa is a business coach. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so during my last semester, I took a coaching and consultation course. I was going to become a therapist, and I was like, oh no, this is much better. Therapy, you're kind of dealing with everyone's past. When you're coaching, you're kind of dealing with their desires and what they want to have in the future.
I like that. I love that.
Yeah, so it was like, I'm going to unpack everything. And no, this sounded so much better, especially for me since I'd been running from my past at this point in time. So I opened my business then, started off with mindset coaching in 2015, and then it just kind of shifted. I actually started writing Little Miss Perfect right after graduate school, and I had pitched it to a couple.
What year is this now?
2015, 2016.
Okay.
And I had this book that was like the size of a Bible, and it had every publishing agency in the United States and every publisher. And I had 3 people who told me that they would work with me to publish my book. But this was right when social media was coming out, and they said, we really want you to build up your following and do all of that fun stuff. Do all of the marketing, and then we'll take your money once we publish your book.
Yeah.
So I shelved the book, focused more on my business, and then COVID happened, and that's when I decided to pick up the book again and actually published it during COVID. And it changed so much because I had grown so much because of the work I had done with coaching and within my business.
Yeah.
The mindset work that I was able to, I wouldn't have shared everything that I shared within the book if I had published it in 2015.
Right. So it was
Yeah.
good that you put it on the shelf.
Yeah,
for a little
and
while.
I want to read the back
ahead,
here
yeah.
because this speaks so much to me in terms of, I present myself certainly as being very confident, and I am confident. I like myself, but I have a lot of negative dialogue with myself in my head. I say horrible things to myself that I would never say to anybody else, that it's embarrassing that I speak to myself like that. But I like on the back of your book, it says, you know, the chatter that tells you you're not skinny enough, not smart enough, not tall enough, not pretty enough, not funny enough, not kind enough, not enough, period. That's your inner critic. She's doing her best to keep you in the past and never let you grow. After having spent a lifetime listening to mine, I can now tell you that I am enough, and so are you. I love that on the back of your book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit
Can I
about,
ask though,
yeah.
what does it mean to be enough? Right?
It's there is.
Do you ever wrestle with
yeah,
that?
Yeah,
Like,
it's
what
like
does
there's
that
no
mean?
version of perfect. Everybody has.
What does that mean?
Everybody's perfect in themselves.
Yeah.
There is no version of enough, right? Like it's just you are enough as you are.
Yeah.
You are, but what is enough? Who knows?
Right.
Well,
That's a
I'm
good question.
starting to learn as I, find myself reading books to help me be more kind to myself, that the biggest thing is not comparing yourself to other people, because that's just,
It's so hard.
that's the death of me, comparing
that's-
myself to other people, and then you're ashamed. Here I am, I go somewhere and I'm going to put it out there. It's embarrassing, but, I see someone, let's say, it sounds so shallow, but carrying a Chanel bag. And I'm like, oh, I want a Chanel bag. It's the epitome of fashion. I love fashion, and Coco Chanel, the epitome of fashion, and they're crazy expensive. And then I'm so humiliated and embarrassed that I, who live this amazing life that I do, who doesn't want for anything, actually, is taking a moment of my time thinking that having a stupid bag would somehow make me happier or better or make people look at me differently. Yeah. It's so asinine, and I know it is, but I find myself wanting things throughout my life.
I absolutely love having these conversations with women who are more healed, or who know that you're healed in itself if you can acknowledge that you're having these feelings and there's something on the back end. I'm reading this book right now, which is called The 5 Types of Wealth. And it talks about like financial wealth, but also time freedom wealth, social wealth, like in your communities and your families. And it's such, and physical health and mental health. And it's just so eye-opening, because as a society, especially here in the States, we've just constantly, we need more,
Yeah.
right? And we always, it's just like, take a moment back. When we can take a step back for a moment and actually see, like, I have so much time freedom in my life that is so rich.
Yeah.
So rich for me, because it affords the capability for me to take care of my health mentally, physically, right? Like afternoon walks, to go to the gym, to snuggle my dog, to take a time out and, sit in front of the ocean and actually enjoy it without wondering what I have to do next, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just, I just think it's a beautiful thought to think about sometimes when we find ourselves thinking of, what does someone else have that I might have? We have so much, right? And I'm so sorry, I can easily get caught up talking in tangents. I see you staring at me right now.
I'm looking at, you're misreading then, because I'm looking at you because it's so powerful to me when you say that. Like, I know I shouldn't do it, and I know how lucky I am. I mean, you just mentioned that. What did I do today? Got up, I had coffee with my husband, I went to the gym, I did run some errands, but 9 out of every 10 people, if not 10 out of every 10, would love to have the day I had today. So I know the smart part of me knows that it's wrong what I do, and I almost think, it's, I guess, like anything, or an addiction or a smoker. And I think, should I put some tight rubber band around my wrist and pull it and snap it, when I have these thoughts? Because I know they're wrong. I'm embarrassed.
I don't like the word
them.
wrong. I don't think you should say that to yourself. It's not wrong. I don't think it's wrong to have the thoughts. It's okay that you're having these thoughts,
Okay,
but also
that's a good way to
also
look at
be grateful for what you do have. It's
Right.
okay to want more. I mean, we're supposed to want an abundant life, whatever that looks like for you. So it's not like it's wrong, because you need to. I would try to get rid of that
the
word.
word wrong is wrong.
The word wrong is wrong.
Okay.
We're throwing
You're-
that word out.
Right, okay.
But it's also
don't
like
throw that
abundance
word
comes
out.
when we're in the present moment and we're grateful for what we have, right? So
Yeah.
it's
But there's
all-
no right or wrong.
Right.
I don't believe there's a right or wrong. But to your point, so I'm also a wellness coach, and I always say we have it wrong. We spend all of our time investing our money in our wealth, right? We want to make more money, make more money, make more money. And then we get to a point in our life where maybe we can spend some of that money and we haven't put enough effort into our health or our well-being. And now all of a sudden we're not healthy enough to enjoy all that money that we've
Yeah.
saved up, right? So I'm just like, we've got it all wrong. We have to invest early in our health at the same time that we're, investing in our wealth, right? That has to be a priority, because you don't want to spend the second half of your life at doctor's appointments and not being able to walk up a set of stairs, right? I mean, and to your point also, the spirituality and all the different areas that are considered wealth.
Yeah.
It's not just about bringing home the bacon.
No, and this is a topic for another day, but I do agree with that, Sharon. And when you were saying that, I immediately think to people who are married with children, because I think they place all this effort in their children. The children are first, and then they wonder why they have a shitty marriage, or they're suddenly, cohabitating or living with a friend instead of a lover. That's where my mind goes, right?
Yeah.
To that.
Yeah, no, it's so important that we have a balanced life and don't put all of our eggs in one basket, right?
Yeah.
So one thing you say on your website with your business coaching is that you want to help people be rich inside and out. And how do we do that?
the exact same things that we're talking about.
Yeah.
All of it, right? Is that you're not, there's this thing in the industry, especially online with coaches and different marketing. It's like we're chasing the money. And you're chasing the money. If you're chasing something, it's like me when I was in 5th grade, chasing this boy that I had a crush on. I was chasing him. What did he do? He was running the other direction. He didn't want to come close to me by any means. You know? And when you're doing
He would now if he saw you.
Let's see. I gotta go make a phone call. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. He might. I'm sure you look better than he does. Let's look him
Definitely,
up.
definitely.
I appreciate that. But no, wealthy is the same. So, you know, that you're healthy with your mindset physically, but you're also enjoying a wealthy, rich life, which is just money, but also not just having the money, having the happiness, the joy that comes from the family, the community, the support, not having to rely on alcohol or food or those things to make you happy, actually enjoying who you are.
Well, and that's part of the reason we named our podcast Joy of the Hang, because it's all about connection. It's all about hanging out with people that you care about and you want to have around you. Because like we were talking to our guest on our last episode, she lost her daughter when she was just 21 months old. And when she put her daughter in the ground, realized you really leave with nothing. You really leave this earth with nothing. Mm-hmm. And so you better have the love that you've left behind and the memories that you've created along the way. Because that's really all that, I'm going to get all teary-eyed, but that's really all that is left.
Yeah, it was pretty potent.
Your legacy.
And this podcast has been so great for all of the wonderful, humans we've met, and everyone having a story to tell. And I feel that it's so therapeutic for us, for them, for our listeners. And it's just the wonderful thing about wearing your heart on your sleeve and being able to have an open and honest conversation. To me, it just makes you feel better. It makes your mind better. It just makes everything seem more okay. Well,
and sharing these stories, especially your story of domestic violence, it really is going to resonate with a lot of people, unfortunately, that are going through some degree of it, some level of this same sort of thing, and trying to figure out how they either get strong enough to leave or get strong enough to stay and be sane in whatever situation they're in, and at least be safe. That's the big thing, is how do we maintain ourselves and be safe in whatever situation we find ourselves in. Yeah. You agree? Yeah.
Completely. Yeah. And at this point, for anybody who's listening to this, like, my messages are always open for anybody who needs to have a conversation. Always there.
That's nice. Thank you. That's really nice.
So then what's next? I mean, you write this fabulous book. You are, a coach, a wellness coach, a financial coach, helping us have better inner dialogue coach. So where do you go from here?
I have been playing it small. I went to an event last weekend, and I left the event, and I called some of my girlfriends. It was in Tampa, so on the hour drive back, I was bitching, like, I cannot believe how small I have been playing for the past 10 years. I've done all of this, but I think that I should be on stages in larger things, in larger realms, sharing my story. So the next thing is I'm building much more connections. And I've been on hundreds of podcasts. I've worked with clients worldwide. I want to share my story on a greater level. And so I've been working a lot with visibility with my clients. And on the back end, I've also been positioning myself in a way where I can start to get on bigger stages. So anybody who's listening, I want to be interviewed. I want connections. I want to be on stages. I think that I have a story that needs to be shared. And I think that when people engage with me, that they can see that if I can do this, oh my God, anybody can. The impossible is possible for anyone.
I like that.
I think you definitely need to be on a big stage, and I agree with you. I think people always need to see the light at the end of the tunnel, where, we like to actually see concrete proof that you can come out on the other side and be okay from something as horrific as a suicide attempt, domestic violence, these truly horrific things that most people don't make it through. So to see someone who's come out on the other side, and not just come out alive, but thriving, is something that should be shared with as many people as possible.
Thank you.
And if anybody out there wants a helpline for domestic violence, I'm looking it up right now. Do you know it? The National Domestic Violence Center, if they want help, the hotline, here we go.
There we go.
National Domestic Violence Hotline. You can call 1-800-799-7233, and there's always somebody there 24/7 to help you through whatever you might be going through at the moment. Did you want to add something to that? Yeah, I think, again, we're here to support you. We want you to get the help that you need to get in a safe place. And go ahead.
Yeah, I want to ask you too, when we have guests here, we, usually ask them towards the end something that they would share with their younger self. So I really want to know what, you sitting here right now, who has accomplished so much. Your master's from USC, you've written Little Miss Perfect. What would you tell right now to the you that was living in that apartment and having that dodo head come
That's so
over?
funny because today I posted a reel that said when I was 16 years old, I dropped out of high school. I did all of these things. Do you remember Beverly Hills 90210?
Of course. Of course.
12-year-old, 13-year-old.
R.I.P. Shannon Doherty. She fought a hard.
Wait, hold on.
Did she pass away already?
Yeah, she
Gosh.
lost her battle with cancer.
So did Luke Perry. He passed away.
Luke Perry
too.
did, yes.
So were we a Brenda? Were we a Dylan or a Brandon, right? Dylan or Brandon?
I didn't watch it. Did you watch it?
Oh, I was a total, the bad boy.
Do you like Dylan?
I like Dylan.
I think I like Dylan.
Yeah.
But so I think that...
Actually, who am I kidding? I like them both. Well, on Monday it was Dylan, and on Tuesday it was Branson. Just like in full disclosure.
We would have got along in high school.
We would have gotten along very well.
No discrimination there.
I think that 16-year-old me or 15, you have no idea what is in store for you, is what I would say. You just have no idea what is in store for you. It's so crazy. Because I think now, we were just talking about this, I'm 46, and I don't feel older. When you're younger, when you're 16 years old, you think 40, oh my God, you're going to die.
You think 23 is old. You think
Yeah.
23 is old.
Yeah.
And yeah, now I'm like, I have so much more to give. The fact that I can say I'm playing small and I know that over the next couple of years, I'm going to be doing this. It's just, yeah, 16-year-old me had no idea what was coming her way.
Melissa, we can say we had you on our podcast.
Yeah, when you make it big, you better have us on yours.
Right?
We want front row seats
Yes, you
here.
will. Yes,
We want
definitely.
front row seats. I've been negligent in not also mentioning that if anyone is struggling with suicidal thoughts, they should also reach out for help. And there is also a suicide prevention hotline that you should reach out to, especially, we don't have a lot of young listeners, but the young listeners that we do have that struggle, that tends to be the age when it's the hardest. So that's a great message that period will pass, and that you do grow up and your life becomes better than you could have imagined.
If there's one thing that I can say from that, so when I got my bachelor's in social work and my master's in social work, I had to work with different populations in every semester to kind of get more experience. And so when I got my bachelor's, I did one semester where I worked with adolescent youth who were exactly like me. In my high school that I actually went to, with my old guidance counselor who had told my mom to take me out of high school because I wasn't thriving.
Yeah.
And so I was in different meetings with him maybe 15 years later, advocating for female youth who were just having the same feelings, who were just like me.
Yeah.
And it was such an incredible experience. So I know you said you don't have younger listeners, but I want to state that, like, my DMs are open to anybody who wants to have a conversation about anything here. I'm always available, and any of the topics that we've talked about today.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Thank you for offering that, because I do think it's so important that somebody feels like they have someone they can reach out to. So if someone hears this and wants to reach out, again, it's on her Instagram. Melissa's Instagram is I am Melissa Fino is where they can find you, right? So yeah, thank you for that, because it's definitely a hard time, and just remember, everything is temporary. This too shall pass. And I want to take a minute before we close to just read. We're asking our listeners, if you like this episode, if you like what we're sharing here on Joy of the Hang, to please leave us a review. And this is a shout out to Jules CDS, who left us a review. And she says, real and transparent. The most common thing I hear from women is how hard it is to make new friends at our age. It takes bravery to put yourself out there, and not everyone feels confident enough to do it. I loved hearing these ladies' story about how they met and how generous they were to each other to start a friendship. Their honesty and respect for each other was refreshing. At the same time, the bluntness and honesty was hilarious. No holds back on what's on these two minds. The combination makes for a fun, interesting, and empowering conversation. Congrats, ladies. I can't wait to hear the next one. So leave us a review, and maybe we'll give you a shout out on the next episode. Right?
Yep.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Melissa. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Melissa. You were great. I can't, wait to see what you accomplish in 2025.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. And we always end with
Peace out, Girl Scout.
peace out, ladies.